Our next speaker is amazing. Actually, was one of the first people I met when I joined the Sub 2 community. And I'm really excited to dive into this. Krystal's gonna come up here and talk about buying businesses that cash flow.
So, Kenny, first of all, thank you for having me. Definitely an honor to be here. I was super excited when he asked me to speak. So, I'm gonna be talking about how to buy a cash flowing business, mostly at a high level, but I'd like to get past some of the crap the gurus are gonna tell you and actually dive in and be a little bit more realistic. So a little about me. Well, my husband's not here, but he decided he didn't feel like speaking today, which is fine. It's about usual. So I have about 20 years in the construction industry in both finance and operations. I ran companies from as small as $1 million in revenue all the way up to about $350 million in revenue. And about 12 or so years of that at a high level, like a director, CFO level. So I've been in it, I've seen it, I've been in the trenches. I know what it takes to actually run and operate a business. And so I decided, I don't know, 5 or so years ago, really stopped liking working for other people. People suck. Bosses are horrible, which I'm sure most of you know that if you've worked in corporate. And so I stopped listening a lot and started getting in a lot of trouble and decided that it was time to branch out on my own. Kind of wanted to go and be the Gordon Ramsay of construction companies. And so that's my forte, that's what I love. I speak construction, I swear too much, just kind of fits into my personality. So my husband and I and one of our other business partners bought, we have a couple of businesses that we bought in the past, but currently we run a window and door company here in Issaquah. So we bought that about a year ago, and it was a small business. Wasn't anything to write home about at the time, except for when we got in, we were like, damn, this is a lot more work than we anticipated, because the owner was like, oh, I only work 10 hours a week. He did only work 10 hours a week because he was turning down work left and right. And so when we dug in, we're like, hey, we need to grow this business. I'm still working my W-2. My husband's still working the W-2. Our other partner is now in full-time. None of us work 10 hours a week. So none of the things the sellers are going to tell you will be true. So that's one thing. So what's happening right now, and a lot of people have, this is very trendy, right? Like buying businesses is the next big thing outside of Sub 2 and investing and all the different things that happen. And lots of people out there will tell you this specific thing is that there's so many boomers out there that are getting ready to retire. There's millions of small businesses that can go up for sale right now at any moment because they're on the way out. Unfortunately, what tends to happen is a lot of people don't know that they can actually sell their business. And so a lot of these guys will just close their doors, which is unfortunate because they have these amazing cash flowing businesses that they could leave and have legacy and not have to lay off their employees. So right now is definitely the opportune time. I'd like to get into a startup versus an actual business and what the differences are and why one is, in my opinion, better than another. With a startup, you're starting up. You're literally starting from zero. You have no customers. You have typically no cash unless you find some VC investor that really wants to take a chance on somebody who's never owned or ran a business before. And you just really have to start from day one as just scrapping. Any of us who have done anything on their own knows how difficult it is to start something up. As a real estate investor, you didn't come out the womb with a house in your hands. You had to go and build that. You have to put in the work, especially on a startup. Don't get me wrong, owning a business is not all hunky-dory and PG. It's a lot of work as well. However, if you buy a business from somebody who already has an established business, you come in from day one with operations, with revenue, and with customers. And so that's one of the reasons that it is imperative for people that want to be in business to really consider buying versus starting. You're gonna take 3 to 5 to maybe even 10 years off of your journey of being a big time business owner if you buy versus build. So here's where we're gonna get into the guru stuff. Everybody out there is, buy a cash flowing business, it'll be passive income. No freaking way, none. It doesn't matter what size business you buy. It could be as small as a business doing $500,000 a year, or as big as the business doing $150,000 a year, or $1 million a year. It doesn't matter. You have to get into that business no matter what. And the smaller you buy, the less passive it's going to be. So if you think about it, if you're getting into a business that's completely owner operated, you now have to step into that business. It's likely that there's no general management in place. There's nobody else to help you run that business. So you're gonna have to be the one to step in. I don't care if it's a laundromat, car dealership, a construction company. You have to step in from day one, even if you eventually believe that it will be passive. You have to know your business. You have to know what the financials look like. You have to know what the levers are to grow your business. If you're reading a financial statement and you just look at that bottom line and say, oh, it looks like we're making money, but don't understand the components that go into that, you're going to be leaving money on the table and not run a good business, and it's going to take you even longer to get out of it. Some of the other levers you want to make sure of is, depending on the type of business, how do you get your customers? Are you B2B, so business to business? Are you business to consumer? Like, what does your actual business look like? And how can you help it to grow if you actually have to step in the day-to-day? And of course, the next step would be hire a general manager. However, if you don't know how to run your business, how are you expecting to train that general manager? You have to know the ins and outs. And then as you grow and can afford to bring some help in, then you can get yourself out more and more as you go. It's definitely not from day one, no matter what anyone says, unless you're going in at such a high end and you're just a fractional partner when there's already operations in place. We'll talk about everybody's favorite thing, the passive income, but buying with someone else's money. That's our favorite thing in here, especially as sub-2 investors. So there's lots of ways to buy a business. I'm just gonna go over a couple today. So the most well-known, SBA. You're gonna get money from the bank, well, technically the federal government. You only have to put about 10% down as long as you have decent credit and as long as you have collateral to be able to back part of that up. And so with the SBA, it is a very long process. It's probably the biggest pain in the ass that you're gonna find for funding. However, it's also the cheapest debt funding you're going to get. You will not find any other debt funding unless somebody just really doesn't care about being paid back at a good interest rate. So it's the easiest one to really get into for the smaller deals as long as you have experience. One thing that the SBA does require outside of money down is experience or a partner with experience in the industry that you're buying in. So for example, me, I run construction companies. If I were to go and say, hey, I want to own a hair salon, I get my hair done. This doesn't just magically happen by myself. I cannot buy a hair salon. Nobody's going to fund me to buy that. And so you really have to get into where you know. So if you have a W-2 and it's in an industry that you know like the back of your hand, that's going to be the easiest one if you want to buy to get into. Other stipulations for the SBA right now, it's becoming harder and harder to get their funding. But you can't be on a visa. You have to now be a US born citizen. So there are some stipulations there to be aware of before looking at this option. But you only have to put down 10% typically of the deal size. And that 10% can come 5% from you, or let's say another outside investor. And then you can also have the seller of the company take over 5% as well. And it's considered rollover equity. But unfortunately, they also now have to personally guarantee that. And so some investors, some owners won't do that, but for the most part, they don't really care, and it's just on standby for 2 years. So after 2 years, they got their 5% back. They keep skin in the game, which you want, and it's just easier to get funded that way. Some of the other pieces, like everybody in here probably knows, seller financing. Never, ever, ever go to a business owner, especially one that's got a really well-established business, and say, please give me your business for 100% seller financing. They will laugh you out the door. It's not going to happen. If they're offering 100% seller financing, ask why. Because most of the time they need to walk away with something, and if they're willing to do that, there's something wrong with the business that you just haven't uncovered yet. It's extremely rare to find a deal where they will do 100% seller financing. It's typically around 10 to 30, and obviously that's all negotiable. And so you always want to press for at least some. If they refuse to do any, it's probably not a good deal either. Like, why do they really want to walk away that bad? You're not asking them necessarily to stay and operate, but why do they need out? So those are just a lot of questions to ask when they, don't want to do seller financing. And then other options, of course, are just investors, friends and family. You can go to family offices. You can go to private equity, depending on the size of the business. One thing to remember, though, if it's non-friend and family investors, they probably want equity. Private equity, they love to take their equity. When I say love to take it, I mean like 50, 60, 80%, unless you can bring some skin to the game too and buy back your equity. So let's get into the numbers a little bit. So the big buzzword now is SDE. So SDE stands for Seller's Discretionary Earnings. Sort of the bottom line, but not entirely true. So the true bottom line is called EBITDA. So it's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and appreciation. And so basically that's kind of your bottom line, where SDE has the owner's salary added back into it. So those are the numbers that everyone shows you. Hey, this business is doing 400,000 in SDE. That's what the seller is taking home. It's not what the seller's taking home. That's what the bottom line is, plus the seller's salary. So when you think about it, with the SDE, and if you're going to operate that business, perfect. You can then take that seller's salary out and you can kind of see, okay, this is probably what I'm going to make at the bottom line and what I might be able to take home. But if you're going to put an operator in there, then you have to remove that amount to get to a true bottom line number to make sure that that operator can be afforded. And so yes, SDE is great to look at, but really you want to look at the actual bottom line number, which is at EBITDA. That is the best number to look at. It's already got the seller's income taken out, and then you can see your true bottom line. So you can see, does this business truly cash flow? That bottom line number, not the SDE, is also what's going to be used for funding. And so when you get in there, just like with the house, it has to cover the DSCR, or the debt service coverage ratio. All lenders are going to see the same thing. With SBA, it has to cover to 1.25%. So I'm going to go over a couple of scenarios here. We're going to look at two size businesses. These are all within SBA range, which is up to $5 million purchase price. And so there are going to be two scenarios. One's going to be a $400,000 SDE, and one's going to be $1 million SDE. The bigger the business you buy, with the higher bottom line, the more likely it is for you to become passive in a much shorter amount of time and actually get to keep more money. So as we look at the numbers, you do a 3x multiple on your $400,000 SDE. Pretty common in most spaces. E-com can go for 4 to 6 at that low. Construction businesses at that small go for like a 2.5 to 3. Sometimes as you get higher up in the numbers, they go for like a 6x. But we're going to do a 3x here. So that's a $1.2 million purchase price. You figure your down payment of 10%. We'll just say that it comes out of your pocket. It's $120. And then after that, you're going to look at your debt service. So that's where that has to be able to be baked in, and you still have to have enough cash flow to cover that and then not go broke. And so with that, it's about $170,000 a year, which leaves you with $230,000 of free cash flow. Talk about what that really means in a minute. And then if you are hands off with the GM, that we're going to say it's $150,000 salary, that now only leaves you with $110,000 of free cash flow. So a real small business, you're buying a job, and it's really not going to pay that well. At the $1 million, we're going to say that it's a 4x multiple. So you buy it for $4 million, which depending on the industry, pretty common. And so you have your down payment, which is the 10% at $400K. You have your debt servicing, which is a lot higher now at $575,000, and these are yearly numbers. And then if you run it with the GM, again, taking out that $150,000 for a general manager, you're sitting at about $400,000 or a little bit more. So $400,000 seems great, really does, until you actually dig into what that $400,000 has and what it's going to be used for. So again, buying smaller, you're buying a job. Buying bigger is a little bit more passive when you get a general manager in there, but you still have to be fairly hands-on. So free cash flow, basically what this is you take all of the stuff that we just talked about. So you're going to take the top line numbers, the bottom line numbers, and you're going to continue to reduce that by what else is going to come out. So your general manager salary, your debt service, your CapEx, your reserves, and your working capital. So let's say you have $400,000 left over. You can't take that $400,000 home. You still have other expenses. You have CapEx that you might end up with to where you have to buy a new HVAC system if you own a building, or a new fleet of trucks. That's money that comes off that bottom line. And then there's also working capital. You have to make sure that you can maintain payroll, right? Like, you don't want to piss your employees off because you can't pay them because you decided to take a bigger salary. And then lastly, there's taxes. So your taxes are always going to be there, unless you can find some creative ways, which we can talk about another time. But there's still only going to be a certain amount left for you to take if you're not operating. So if you want this to be completely passive, you're going to get less money, especially in the beginning, unless you buy a much larger business. So thinking in the $2 to $3 to $4 million bottom line, which then puts you into a whole nother area of funding and everything else. So stick with the bigger ones, but keep within your wheelhouse too. So some of the things to ask the sellers as you're getting ready to get on the calls and start talking to them. One of the reasons that you want to ask this first question is just to kind of get to know who the seller is. Why are you selling? Retirement. That's the most common one right now because they're boomers. But let's say you find somebody in their 40s. Why are you selling? Could be a plethora of reasons. They may want the cash to go invest in something else. A lot of them will want to go invest in their real estate portfolio that they already started. But others, they say, oh, I just want to invest in other things. However, their margins are declining. Their business is going under. They're just trying to get out is really what they're trying to do because they couldn't run their business well. So it's a big one to ask and kind of get to know the seller. One of the big things that the SBA looks like and any other lender at the same time is customer concentration. Doesn't matter if you're B2B or B2C, if you have a customer that is more than 20 to 25% of your revenue, that's a big red flag. What happens if that customer goes away? You just cut your margins by 25%. So it's a big issue with those ones. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, Costco's my biggest customer. They give me 80% of my business. Well, shit, what happens if Costco goes away? Like there goes 80%, and now I'm basically a startup again, because 20% is not going to be sustainable. Some of the other things to ask, obviously, is how much is the owner putting in there? Like I said at the beginning, the guy we bought our business from was probably only working 10 hours a week, but he was barely doing anything for the business. And so when we came in and took over, fixed the systems, hired people, put the things in place we needed to start our exit so that we could go and buy our next one, it's a heck of a lot more than just 10 hours a week. And also ask about quality of earnings. So look at your financials or look at their financials, and what you really want to look for is holes. You want to look for anything that's kind of hairy on the deal. So one of the people that you're going to deal with is going to be the people that are doing your due diligence. They are going to do a qualities of earnings report, and that way they can run through the numbers. They're going to dig in, really dig in, and they're going to tell you what's really going on with the business. And lastly, find out about what they're deferring for capital expenditures. Like I said, HVAC systems in a building, a bigger fleet. If they have an aging fleet, you're likely going to turn and burn stuff within 5 to 10 years in terms of vans or in terms of like big trucks. If they leave and their van now has to be serviced or get a new one in a year, that's now on you. So you have to do your due diligence there. So some of the things that you want to do to shape the deal, you can get the seller financing, which is great. You can do an earnout, and so basically the owners stay in and they help you and they get more money as they help you. So you set a peg and say, hey, if you can take us and we can sustain, perfect, you'll get this amount of money. But if you can help us continue to grow, we're going to give you even more money. So that's a good way to keep the owners in, engaged, and kind of grow the business because they know the business. Other things are holdback and escrow. So say there's something sketchy, you can hold money back in an escrow account and it only gets released if you hit certain parameters or say nothing legal pops up within the first year. And then you can also do an asset versus stock purchase. And so an asset purchase is basically you buying just the assets of the company. So the trucks, the buildings, nothing but just the assets. And so with that, you're kind of also starting over because you have to buy it under your own LLC. And then that is basically new. And so you're kind of buying a brand new company versus the stock sale, you're getting everything that comes with that company. So it's actually a better purchase as long as there's nothing legal in there. So your team, we have your lenders. Sorry, I'm gonna have to rush through this. I'm getting down on time. You have your lenders, your brokers, which if you can avoid a business broker, do it. Your due diligence team. So your financial, your legal, and your operational, they are the backbone of your team. You really need a good team for that. And then being realistic about your timeline. It does not take 2 days to close a deal. You can close real estate a hell of a lot faster than you can close on a business, even if you're not doing SBA. From the start of that first broker or seller call to the date of close is usually 3 to 6 months, if not stretching on for a couple years. Okay, start today. Figure out what do you want to do. Get your buy box going. Figure out what industry, what states, how much money you need to survive, especially if you're going to quit a W-2. Make sure you know those numbers. Go look and explore everywhere. Go to broker sites. Go see if you can get off-market deals. Start scraping. I use Claude to scrape my most recent cold call stuff. Like, just go out there and say, these are my parameters. Find all these businesses. It returned me in just like 40 minutes. I think I got 650 leads that I'm not going to call them, but somebody I'm going to hire is. So it's always a good thing. And just start talking. Don't waste any time. If you think this is what you want to do, engage with somebody already doing it and just go out there and do it. All right, so 2 QR codes. So first one, if you guys are in the greater Seattle East Side area, or I guess anywhere. We could also do a supplier deal. I run a window and door company, so if you need any remodels for windows and stuff, definitely hit me up there. And I also have a consulting business that I run kind of on the side. So if you're already in business, or if you want to get into business and you want help, I've been doing some courses, and then I have a full suite of services for anybody that's already doing business. So, thank you.
Can you go back to the QR codes again? Thank you.
Back to the codes.
There you go. Thank you.
Everyone make some more noise for Krystal, please. That was awesome. I like that Krystal always brings their realness. She's not going to sell you any bullshit. She's going to tell you how it is, and I always appreciate that about her.